Yeah, the conversation starts getting lethal, moment by moment.
It's always lethal, brother.
Yeah,
It's always
right?
lethal. So today, we're going to talk about one of our favorite dudes, Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, he's pretty much awesome, man.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to watch the amount of controversy that follows his name. You can throw criticism because there are plenty of things that I've watched myself. I've shown you, that showcase some shortcomings in the things that he mentions. But man, to like be angry at the man for speaking to people,
Yeah, well, yeah, it's usually just people taking shit out of context,
Right.
Like it's never like he says something that's crazy wackadoo that you could point at and be like, that's a shitty thing to say.
at this point, because of the kind of person that I am, that I love to shit on things that I like. I'm kind of waiting for that moment to happen. Like, no, I don't think anyone's more vigilant than me at this moment in terms of waiting for the other shoe to drop in terms of just in terms of being human and like potentially
Making an error.
an error. Yeah,
Well, that Jim Jeffries clip was a pretty good example of that, where I forget what they were talking about, but you remember watching that clip?
yeah. He was talking about, and if the listeners haven't watched it, go watch it because it's awesome.
It's hilarious, yeah.
It's awesome. Jim Jeffries asks Jordan Peterson if he believes that the Supreme Court should make a bakery make a cake for gay people.
Yeah, be forced to.
Yeah, be forced to. Exactly. That's the main point.
Yep.
And Jordan Peterson reactively, you can see it. He reactively says, "No, of course not." The moment he hears government and forced is like, "Oh, what? No." Jim Jeffries accepts the answer, but then retorts with the fact that we forced people to integrate races before, and it worked in a couple generations. Although there's still some turmoil here and there, we for the most part have managed to be able to come together as a culture more favorably.
Oh, definitely.
And as a result, and it was entirely as a result of state compulsion. Entirely, no one can say that the Civil Rights Act was not a means of state compulsion to drive us a certain way, but the results are in,
Yeah.
and the world is much more awesome than it was before.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson, he just dropped it. He's like, no, I guess not. I guess I was wrong, and I loved him for that. I remember you tried to show it to me because you thought that perhaps like Jim Jeffries had gone too far, or like derailed him into.
No.
I don't know. Okay.
Well, I was just interested in the whole like kind of logic trap. I don't know what you would call that, because it's like you were saying, like he's like, Jim Jeffries is asking him, do you think it's okay to do it? And Jordan, no. And then he's like, you know what? I think I was wrong by the end of the clip. And then,
totally.
And then that left me in the exact same position, because I'm just following along with the conversation. I'm like, no, I don't think that's right. No, I don't think that's right. And then I'm like, oh, I'm fucking Jordan Peterson in this moment. I'm thinking the exact same thing. And then,
Correct.
And then, well, that's the whole reason I showed you, is because I was like, maybe Jose can fucking help me work out this little mental
And I loved
puzzle.
it. I loved it because we can't be dissonant about what it is. The government took steps in order to be able to essentially rectify our ethical behavior as a society. They said you can't be treating people of color, black people, whatever, this X way. It has to change. And to this day, there's vitriol about that. I mean, there are plenty of blogs. The moment you touch a keyboard, that will tell you that was an overstepping of the state, and that perhaps the free market would have been able to handle racism just fine on its own, but
Probably would have taken
it would have taken a long time. And you also have to consider the fact that the majority always drives the capital whichever way they want, and in order to be able to change how the majority thinks, you have to unfortunately use the majority's own rules to do so.
It's dangerous work, but
Yeah, it's dangerous work, but it paid off.
It did,
It
yeah.
paid off. To my mind, as a Latino male, I feel very comfortable, and I love this country unbelievably as a result of the immense advancements that we've had in terms of social and ethical issues. I think,
I think it could be argued that in that sense, this is probably in the top 3 places to live in that particular sense.
no doubt. At least
like in the world.
yeah, without having to touch an ocean, I feel that this is creme de la creme in terms of places to live. As a result of that, I love it so much that I can't help but want it to be better. And sometimes it's necessary to, bring out the rod, not the whip, but to straighten up the back, I feel. Just kind of run it up and be like, we can do a little better. We're slouching in certain areas. And I think that's what Jordan Peterson really brings to the table. If you genuinely listen without much further than just one clip here and one clip there, like if you take your time and go and listen to his Maps of Meanings lectures, they're all free. You're talking about thousands of dollars worth of tuition money that you would have to pay in order to go to the University of Toronto and listen to the man speak. But he has the good sense to allow all of that to be on YouTube, and genuinely, his hard work is what gave him his name.
Yes.
Because it was him being a lecturer, him going through what the big five are, the big five personality factors. I might botch it, but once again, we're all here as a learning experience. I believe that it's neuroticism, extroversion, openness, conscientiousness, and agreeableness. I believe those are it. I made an acronym inside my head, NICO, to remember that. If anybody wants to print that from
Steal
me.
that mnemonic device from me.
Hey, we're all part of the same crew here. So, be smart out there.
That's right.
And bring them back here so we can just keep churning them out. Churning them out. But yeah, I learned that about him. It really opened my eyes to how one can fractionate an individual. You can really understand how people's temperament genuinely drives them, and as a result of that, once again, it potentially might come to become my tagline or my catchphrase in this series, but it fosters empathy. It genuinely showcases how other people live, and even if you're not like a soft, lovey-dovey kind of person who's like, I don't care how other people feel, it's a very useful tactical maneuver too.
Absolutely.
Because empathy is first and foremost a tactic. It is an evolutionary tactic for you to understand your enemy and understand the people around you so then you don't get caught slipping. That is what empathy is supposed to be. Sympathy is when you're supposed to go through with the allying of the person and you can put yourself in their shoes and feel with the heart feeling. Nothing wrong with that, but the thing is, you can be selective when it comes to choosing who to apply sympathy to. You want to apply empathy to everybody. You want to be everyone at the same time and understand why they feel how they feel, because then potentially you can maybe learn something yourself or learn a better way to be able to access them, get at them, and interface with them in a way that both of you can be able to come out ahead. That's the big deal, right? It's like, why would you ever want to talk to somebody if it's not for the advancement of both people?
Right. That's one of the chapters of 12 Rules for Life, which is...
which I have not read.
But it is an amazing book. I once heard somebody say, every hotel that I stay at, I steal the Gideon Bible and place a copy of 12 Rules in the drawer.
We gotta figure out who said that.
Yeah, it was a guy from the Mean Boys podcast, if I remember correctly. He was a big fan.
Shout out to them then, because they sound hilarious.
They are hilarious. But the title of that chapter was "Speak to people as if you have something to learn from them." Talk to people in that manner, as if everybody had something that you don't know.
And they do,
right?
And that's the thing, is that that's such an actual simple rule to follow because it is already an objective reality. The fact that you only live a one-person life at all times while everyone else is absorbing information that is entirely alien to you.
It's a lot of information.
A lot.
Yeah, and the more you're mindful and open and aware of it, the more you're gonna glean from it. I guess that's just that's what you were just saying was specifically about being empathetic towards people. So 12 Rules for Life, and anything else really, I'd say, including I've seen the first two Maps of Meaning episodes. No, I've seen the first Maps of Meaning episode on YouTube. They're all fucking super long. They're like 2.5 hours a piece.
They're a lecture.
Yeah, but they're super worth it to sit down and listen to. And then I've seen the first two of his Bible lectures, which are fascinating. And then I've read 12 Rules. I mean, like you were saying, the more you listen to the guy, the more you start to pick up on his talking points, what's really important to him. And one of the cornerstones, I think, for what he is concerned about, much like any other philosopher, is meaning, and the way that he describes the journey. It's like he describes how you find meaning as more of a process and as more of a practice, like a hobby almost. Like it's something that you have to do and strive for every day. It's taking any kind of action in your life that pushes you towards, being a better person, being a better you. And that's that's super distilled. The guy goes into it at length, and he's brilliant.
It's true. I remember one thing that really sticks to my mind in terms of being more judicious with yourself is his all mentioning that you want to be able to speak to yourself as though you were attempting to persuade yourself to do something, as opposed to you being a dictator to yourself and saying you're gonna do this and you're gonna do this. You talk to yourself a little more softly and wonder, okay, like there's problems around us. What can we do in order to be able to fix some things around us? Speak as though you were a salesman to yourself and try to get to a point that you can start fixing a little bit. That's what he always mentions when he says to aim low.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of misconceptions in terms of that phrase. And he cleared it up in one of the Joe Rogan podcasts. I don't quite remember which one, but
Which are all great, by the way.
they're all great, exactly. That's why
listen to them
I'm
all.
not even going to bother looking it up because I'll let you guess as you listen through it. But he mentions the fact that to aim low just means to have humility and to understand that perhaps, the problems in your particular life perhaps are gigantic, grandiose, and horrible. But there are particular small things that may appear mundane at first that can allow you to create and bulwark yourself to eventually be able to get closer to that bigger dragon. See, that's the thing about him, is that he uses a lot of figurative language, because I think he learned from being around children, because he mentions his stints working in daycares and stuff like that all the time, that that's genuinely how people learn, and the most important times of life are when you're young. And that's the best way to be able to convey a message, is to say, like, you can't explain the abstract concept of adult fear to a child, but they understand what it means to be afraid of a dragon, for example. So you as an adult can then conceptualize your problems in the sense of you are a knight trying to fight the dragon, and you can't fight it without proper armor, and the armor comes from you training yourself in life in order to be able to eventually ascend the steps to fight those bigger issues. And he never takes off the table that you might fail, and that's a very Nietzschean aspect of his philosophy, is the fact that there is no hiding from the fact that everything could potentially go horribly wrong. Just because you're fighting a dragon doesn't mean that your destiny is written to be magnificent, but it at least means that it was a destiny that can be completed. It doesn't have to, you don't have to fester away hoping that somebody else comes around to solve your problems. That's essentially the big distillation of that aspect to me. They're all truisms. That's one thing I always mention too, and I hear mentioned all the time, and he mentions them as well. Everybody understands that the things that he's saying are things that are archetypical. Like,
very much so. Cliche almost.
Cliche, of course.
Like on their face, for sure. Somebody tells you, and this is, whenever I try to talk to somebody about 12 rules, and I'm like, it's full of good advice, like, stand up straight with your shoulders back, and they kind of look at me like I'm stupid, because as I'm saying it, that sounds kind of stupid. This is something that I've heard, I don't know who specifically, but I've heard a couple people say this about the guy, that he's a lot like a dad. He's a lot like a father figure. You know what I mean? He's not demanding you of anything, but he's like, this is what you should probably fucking do. I've thought a lot about this, and here's what I've come up with. And
right, because there's suggestions. I think that's the biggest thing ever, is the fact that you are free to choose under the tutelage of what Jordan Peterson has to teach, is that you can stop at any time and be like, okay, well, I've had enough of these truisms, and I think I'm good enough now to go off and try to fight my own battles.
And I think you're kind of like encroaching on that point too, right? Like that's kind of the reason you decided not to read 12 Rules yet, or aren't very like into, just because like.
Right. It's essentially just a condensation of his maps of meaning lecture and all of the biblical lectures,
Yeah.
which I've read. I mean, I've watched both of those things entirely.
Fascinating shit. Especially the biblical lectures, man. Those.
Yes.
I was thinking about, because I only watched the first 2 episodes, which is maybe 4 hours of content or something. I think they're 2 hours a piece.
They're about 2 hours 45 minutes a pop.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that only having my kind of job could allow you to do, and it just melts away. It's great.
Yeah. Fuck, dude. That's an easy 6 hours then, because it didn't feel like that long.
No,
and
but
I
then,
sat and thought about it for days afterwards. I just, without going into specifics, like the idea that speech is what derives order out of chaos, like it's an essential part. That idea blows my fucking mind. I can't, like, I still trouble to wrap my head around it.
Yeah, I think to my mind, the reason why that feels so significant as well, because I'm totally on board with you on that end, is that it takes up a null thing and it makes it feel fantastical. Because what are we doing right now? We're speaking. We're using semiotic coherence that we've learned through our, kinder years to get here and speak now like adults, I suppose. Like this is what an adult sounds like. And from there, we've been able to coalesce and get each other set up in such a way that we live in a society that we don't have to go toil, and we have enough time to do things like this. Take time to talk to our friends about, a guy such as Jordan Peterson, who has the potential to, if not lead you the right way, potentially maybe glean things that you already know. That's one thing also that he mentions all the time, is that half the people that go to him is like, I've never heard this before, and the other half is like, yes, everything you're saying I already knew entirely, but the way that you articulated it made it shine brighter. Because I think that's one thing that people don't take into consideration, is that you can walk across a field of diamonds that are yet to be polished, and if you don't have the right eye to discern what is what, you'll just walk right by and not tell. But yet those things are still diamonds. They don't lose their luster just because you fail to grasp how important they are. And I think that's one of the things that one can glean off of these truisms, is that although they're everywhere, and literally every homeless person will tell you, if you don't want to be like me, you gotta, keep yourself straight, don't be lying and stuff. It's like, literally, that's what the 12 rules of life are.
Yeah.
And but because they're articulated in a way that allows you to be able to see, and he abstracts in very, very amazing ways.
Yeah, the simple stories that he uses are just perfect.
That's all you need. It's unbelievable how unnecessarily complex things are created, when in reality it just requires a small parable or allegory to like really drive it home.
I wanted you, speaking of that, I just wanted you, because the last time you explained it to me, it broke my brain a little bit and it kind of melted my heart. And it seems like
broke brains and melted hearts.
Yes. It seems like the kind of thing that everybody should hear, but Jordan Peterson, one of his biggest influences is Nietzsche, and you told me this parable or aphorism or whatever you want to call it from the Spoke the Sutra, Zarathustra, about this story about the diamonds and the coal.
Right. If anybody's listening and wants to read it themselves, we have it pinned on the Facebook page of the Lethal Introspection Crew. So if you don't want me to completely botch it, because we're doing everything off the cuff here, everything's just organic. And that's the 29th law table that Zarathustra creates in order to be able to kind of bring some new order after God has died. And the 29th law table is not a law, it's a story. But the law comes from within the story. And the story goes that the diamond was asked by the charcoal one day, "Why are you so hard on us? Are we not brothers?" the diamond looks over to the charcoal and says, "Why are you so soft? Are you not my brothers? Why would you want to be? Why would you not want to be sharp in order for us to be able to create together?" It's like if you remain soft all the time, we won't be able to conquer. And because of that, you need to be able to strive higher as opposed to trying to bring everyone else down. It's like the law is be hard. That's what the law is.
And strive to
yeah.
be better.
Because we're all brothers, right? It's like if you see somebody that's a diamond, you don't go tell them that, hey, stop striving. That cuts us all at the knees, because then we're all charcoals forever, as opposed to us being able to have active examples of the spectrum of things we could be. You know, because there are some charcoals that shine brighter than others, you know, even within the spectrum of charcoals. Like everyone's working towards something. And those, although I've said it before and I still believe it, I'm not that big into abstractions. I don't really like, you know, like if you can, I think that the real, that's why I find Jordan Peterson to be so great, because although he uses allegories and stuff like that, he then goes off and explains it in a slightly more analytical, like psychoanalytical way. So you can, he brings it back home is really the thing. He doesn't allow it to stay off adrift, because if somebody doesn't really understand what, it's like, why are charcoals and diamonds talking to each other? It's like, when would that ever happen?
Yeah.
You know, you lose people, boom, right away. And an amazing gem inside of that story is lost. Once again, because you can't see it. Not because it's not there, but because you can't see it. And that's what all of the spoke Zarathustra is essentially like, it's like a New Age Bible.
Yeah.
To my mind, that's exactly what Nietzsche was going for. It's like, oh, shit, like, people don't have a God anymore.
Yeah.
And people are crazy. So we need to find some way to, like, not corral them, but lead them down like a bridge, he said. Everyone needs to be, is a plank to the bridge toward the Superman, was his denoting factor. And the Superman is essentially God, because it's you. It's like, it's you in a better form. You'll never be the Superman because you're always going to be imperfect, but there's always a future version out there that's just so much better, you know? It's just doing so much better, feeling so much better, and that abstraction, that's the God to chase. It became more of a, I feel like a more kinesthetic sort of mysticism, kind of. It's like you can't just sit around and wait for Jesus to come back. You can't just wait around for your own death. It's like, no, it's like it's not like Jesus where he'll always come back. It's like the Superman can not come. It can come to pass that the Superman will totally miss our planet, and it will never come to pass that it'll be like that here. But we have a choice. Like we were talking with Kevin the other time in our psychedelic experience episode, which you should check out.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it's awesome. We were talking about the fact that determinism doesn't mean that you're led one way. That's predestination. It's a word that I forgot to mention last time, but one I'm trying to rectify here. There's a difference between determinism and predestination. And in determinism, you get to, like I said, be a node in a network of choices, as opposed to just being A, then B, then C, then D, etc., all the way ad nauseum until your death. And here, although the network always leads to death in some way or another, it zigzags, it creates cool patterns, it can go in any sort of direction. You have the free ability to choose how the line looks, as opposed to it always having to be straight. And that's something that Jordan Peterson really brings to mind. He always is just telling people, it's like, you don't have to do anything of what I'm saying. All of this is entirely a choice. But think about how cool life would be, you know, if you didn't suck.
Yeah, and all you have to do is what? Try. Just try to do something. Yeah. It's
not even one thing, really.
Well, he often talks about this story about one of his clients, a kid or something, a teenager, I think, and he tells this kid to start small. He goes, well, just clean up your room. Apparently the family didn't clean the house very much or something like that, and so the kid cleans up his room, and his family gets mad at him for it. Because they're like, what do you think, you're better than us trying to clean up your fucking room? And he's just taking a small step to make his life better. Right?
I remember, I think I might have remembered hearing that. Yeah. Once again, he analogizes for that perfectly. He says that by him getting his life together, he has awoken the devils in his home, and through the pathologies of his parents,
Yeah.
and those devils have lineages that go far, far back,
Yeah.
and they're powerful, and he comes from those devils. He is part devil himself, as we all are.
He's trying to break out of this negative feedback loop that's been continuing since before
You know what I
he was
learned
born.
actually? And we have to actually be careful when we say these things.
Oh, okay.
Because a positive feedback loop is a loop that continues until the point that it breaks apart because it keeps adding and adding and adding until it breaks.
Okay.
A negative feedback loop is one that goes until it stabilizes itself. So whenever you want to denote things that are negative or like that are going to just keep going and going until they break off, it's
Yeah.
always a positive,
Positive
feedback loop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. It's weird. Yeah, it's weird that like once again like the semiotics of the talk, like you hear positive, be like, no, that's not what I mean. I mean a negative feedback loop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Always learning.
Always learning. That's the whole point. Killer thoughts at all times. You never know where the knife might come from.
Yes. Okay. So
It's a positive
feedback loop into it. Well, what I gleaned from that, and I think what the point of the story too is, like you were saying too, is beforehand, it's about the journey. It's being happy. What does he always say? Being happy is not. It's not a destination. It's the journey. You know what I mean? And that's where you glean, or that's where that's his whole dig is the journey. That's where you find the meaning and you make your own meaning, because the presupposition that he bases that argument off of is that life is suffering.
Correct.
Right? Most aptly said, I think, by the Dread Pirate Roberts in The Princess Bride. Life is pain, and anybody that tells you different is selling something. I learned that as a small child, and I didn't even know how profound it was.
The Princess Bride is an amazing movie.
It is.
It's like
it was very sharp. I bet Zemeckis was a fan of Nietzsche. Or wait, was that Zemeckis? I don't remember who fucking directed that movie. I don't think it was Zemeckis now that I think about it. But
right. I mean, happiness is so unbelievably transient. And I don't know about you or anybody that might be listening right now, but when I feel happy for too long, I start feeling kind of suspicious. Like, what exactly is it that is it about the situation that's making me feel so happy so long?
Right.
Because my life, unfortunately, and this is, once again, that's why I choose to never want to be the arbiter of reality. My life feels very neurotic sometimes. Although I can put off a very calm veneer, I'm always worried as to whether I'm wasting my time or not. And it's something that has always hounded me, but when I was younger, I could turn it off a little bit more because I looked at myself and I was like, oh, I'm young. It's all right. It's like I'll either die soon, and then it won't matter, or I'll have a long time left and then I'll be able to fix myself up. I lived that credo all the way through my teenage years and my early 20s, and unfortunately, I don't feel like I'm paying the reckoning for that mentality, but it is time to pay the piper. It's now the time that I had my fun when I was young, and I could afford it. I feel like I could get blackout drunk and wake up the next day and go work at Walmart just fine. Now I'm really glad that there's a guy like Jordan Peterson that can help me reestablish myself with the truisms I already knew. And because I have a father, and my father is great, I have been very fortunate to be created in a reality where I happen to have a dad that had his like five senses, like from Jump Street, and because of that, I've never had to feel any sort of instability in terms of my masculine role models, and I've always known what it means to be a successful person.
yeah.
So it's never been too hard for me. So it's I think once again why I never like to be an arbiter of any reality, because my reality almost feels a bit too good.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are two kind of key differences there between you and me, and I think, and it's funny that it's Jordan Peterson that still brings us both back to the same place after this. But like, not that I didn't have a dad growing up, but my parents were divorced, and so we didn't. I don't know. It's not that he wasn't around, but I don't know. It's kind of like a second class like type of situation. Like you'd see him every month maybe, and then
that's harsh.
I didn't realize it at the time. But the other thing you said too before that about how you had always been in that mindset of like yeah, I'm gonna have to worry about some things. I'm gonna have to be mindful of shit that I need to do in the
Right.
future to be better. I never thought like that, and so I think that compounded with the not really having a strong. I had some strong male figures in my life, but I never.
sure.
I don't think well, yeah, that's what yeah, right back again to the Jordan Peterson. It's kind of like he's kind of like a father figure. There's a lot, like you said.
Yeah, my wife laughed at me when I mentioned that to her too. And she's like, "You already have a dad." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah," and my dad's great.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but he once again can't articulate himself the way Jordan Peterson can. Like
Right.
my dad can tell me the truism. My dad can tell me like the title
Right.
page of the
Of the
book, but he
chapter
can't
of
give
the-
me the chapter.
Yeah, he
You know,
can't give you the-
and bless the man's heart. I love him to death. He is an unbelievably hard worker, and I would never expect him to be able to articulate himself in that way for me particularly. You know, it's like he leads by example. While Jordan Peterson has, because of his ability to have gone to college and become an experimental and clinical
Well,
psychologist and everything.
all the experience with
Right,
being
right.
a clinical psychologist. Holy shit!
Right.
Can you imagine what 20 years of talking to people that have a lot of problems?
Yeah,
does
because
for
no
your
one would
knowledge?
want. No one goes to a psychologist when you're doing fine.
No, no,
Yeah,
no, no.
no
He's
one
getting
wants
the worst of the worst. He's taken all the shit in for what 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Just mulling it over all the fucking
all the while living through the Cold War the entire
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So one thing that he says really shaped him is his continual worry about nuclear proliferation throughout the 80s and how everyone around him kind of looked like weird to him because no one was worrying as much as he
Yeah.
was.
They're like the world might end.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that troublesome?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shut up, Jordan.
That reminds me of that's kind of interesting that because the preface to one of Jordan Peterson's influences, Fyodor Dostoevsky,
Oh, yes.
Crime and Punishment, which I'm almost done with, probably the saddest book I've ever read. There's a lot of wisdom to be gleaned from it.
It's to my mind one of the funniest books I've ever read.
Oh.
It's a comedy to my mind.
Oh boy!
Yes,
well, I
it
haven't
is.
finished it yet, so yeah.
It's okay. And you know what? We had already talked about wanting to do a little segment
Yes.
on the book itself.
We should
and what it meant. Yeah.
after I finish it. Yeah.
Hit it up.
But oh fuck! What was I gonna say? Oh, the preface to that book is written by someone. I'm sorry, I don't remember who. But they're talking about how, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm only vaguely remembering this, but about how when Dostoevsky he was a prisoner of war maybe, and he was set to be executed.
Correct.
They brought him out to be executed, and within the last
Couple seconds,
before
minutes.
they were all on firing squad, I think it was.
Yes.
They recalled the execution, and
He got sent to Siberia.
he got sent to. Holy fuck, dude. Okay, that is super shitty. But what they said, what the whomever wrote that preface said was that this stuck with him his entire life. This feeling of
It stuck with Dostoevsky.
yes, this terrible, I can't even unimaginable feeling of being tied down and having your life just taken from you, just having that fear inside of you of like you're gonna die now and there's nothing you can do about it, and then just having it snapped away. I mean, I'm sure there's relief in there, but the amount of mental torture.
Let me add a little bit to that because I've read The Idiot, which is the following book. I don't know if it's canonically the following book, but it's after Crime and Punishment, and it's
I didn't know this.
a much lighter book than Crime and Punishment
It doesn't
was.
make you want to cry.
It does.
all the time.
It doesn't make you want to cry for the same reasons. It
Oh,
still
okay.
makes you want to cry sometimes, but it's a much more beautiful book to my mind. And in that book, the Prince Mushkin, who is the idiot of the story, he tells a story of how and it's a pretty much an autobiographical retelling of Dostoevsky's life, where what Dostoevsky genuinely felt afterwards, not once he actually was able to think about the situation, was unbelievable relief and such simple love for reality, to the point that everything seemed precious to him now. Because it is literally like he was living on borrowed time it's like that feeling of like that people say when they've had like a near death experience, that now it's like I'm playing with the house money, like Kevin Smith said in the Joe Rogan podcast after his unfortunate heart attack. He said that he felt like he's now playing with the house money because he should be dead. He should have been dead on that gurney, cremated and gone away or whatever Kevin Smith wants to do with his body. But the sad reality is that we're always playing with house money. There is no time that like, oh, now time is like free. It's like time's always been just a commodity. It's going away and going away, and we need to just be awoken to the fact that that is what is genuinely happening. It isn't that today is worthless, because it isn't just worthless. It is a day that is happening to a whole ton of people all over the place, and in the same way that we're actually bothering to take a couple minutes of our time to speak to people about things that we genuinely love and could potentially reach them too, everybody has that opportunity as well now. And I sometimes do feel like the prince, like as an idiot, just how unbelievably grateful I feel just toward reality and just walking around and being like, man, like every moment is just as precious as the next, because I could have been killed in a car accident. I could have been everybody. If you close your eyes right now, you can picture at least one moment where your life was in mortal danger and you are still here for some reason.
Yeah.
And consider that the moment when you started playing with house money. Why not, right? It's like, why get it to the point that you have to be laying on a gurney for you then to be able to really begin to appreciate?
Oh, it's a much better place to start. I'd pick that over the gurney for sure.
Right.
Yeah. No, yeah, I can remember a time like that, but this is it's really all about, this is something that's brand new to me. Like this is an idea, I think, what we're talking about, trying to be a better person than you were yesterday. Trying to make each day something, because it has the potential for something in it.
And it compounds. It compounds very quickly.
And that's another thing we were talking about the other day, where you just started going to the gym, what was it, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
And you put on 40 pounds of muscle?
40 pounds, yeah.
That's
used to weigh
fucking
148.
insane, dude. That is so cool. And it just goes to show you just take a little bit every day.
Yeah, because I'm not doing anything extreme whatsoever. Right. It's literally just consistency. Consistency has been, to me, the key ingredient to all of the successes of all of my life. Going to college, going to the gym, having a job. It's just understanding that there isn't a tomorrow that you can put things off to, because you're already living tomorrow. There's already a you yesterday that thought, I'm going to put this off till tomorrow. Yeah. And you're living that tomorrow already. Mm-hmm. You're always carrying the burdens of your lazier self. So imagine if none of you were lazy. Like
this really drives at the central theme of Jordan Peterson, right? Mm-hmm. To do this is my favorite chapter in 12 Rules, is to pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient.
Ooh, that's a good title name.
It is the most profound and obvious truism that exists, like in the background of everyday life, that it took a book to point it out to me, to like really break it down, and he does so amazingly. It's almost like the most obvious thing in the world. When
break it down for me. What is it? What does that mean for you?
Man. Well, for me, it means kind of like you were saying. It's the incremental improvement that comes with being consistent and having discipline and just doing things that you know that you should do.
Right.
Like, as silly as it sounds, recently, every day when I come home from work, I do the dishes. I'm like, I gotta do the dishes.
You're
I don't know why.
a fucking superhero, man. You're a superhero.
And it's weird that it, like, okay, well, that was just one little thing. And sure, it's nice, like, having a clean kitchen is nice.
Yeah, right.
But then, and then we started dieting, and for the first time in my life, I've actually stuck to a diet.
Ooh.
And I've seen some minimal improvements, but it's enough that it makes me feel good. And
Right. When they're consistent is the
right,
thing.
and it's every day. That's right. I'm a month in, and then I just recently got my stationary bike back from where I used to live.
Okay.
Because I was like, you know what? I might as well add in a little bit, and it's like
We're
all
watching
these-
YouTube videos all the time, right? It's
Right.
like, why not just...
Why not just fucking get some cardio in?
Right.
When I dropped a couple of years ago, I dropped 20 or 30 pounds, and that's all I did. As I woke up every morning and I jumped on the bike, and I started thinking, why am I not doing that? It'll take 20, 30 minutes of my day, and it's gonna fucking compound. It's gonna, and I'm not even really that concerned with it, just because in the moment it seems like it's a good sacrifice to make.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's sacrificing a little bit for in the future I can have 30 more pounds of muscle on me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll be way more better. I'll be way better off.
Yeah. Way more better.
Way more better off
Yeah,
than
way
I
more
was
better.
before from just getting on the bike, couple days a week, or going to the gym, or lifting some weights, or reading a book,
Yeah, man.
or watching a couple lectures.
It seriously seems like it's like a law of nature that you can't help but get better at things you consistently do. It
Right.
Yeah, you kind of fall into the rhythm of success. Like, as if success was a dance, that would be the way to dance. It would be to do it all of the time. To begin breaking life down into the genuine segments that they are. That's one thing that I've really been doing for myself, is no longer thinking about time in any way, in any other spectrum other than today. What exactly is it about? What is it about today that can launch things for the future that I can then catch some other time? Because that's what we're doing right now. We literally threw a ball to ourselves last weekend when we did our last episode over to right here, hoping that in the future we will catch it and be consistent and continue putting output and continuously getting better between ourselves, getting more comfortable speaking to the hypothetical thousands and millions of people I'm sure that are out there. Oh, just you.
Oh,
You
hey,
know who
Joe
you are.
Rogan.
Yeah,
Oh, hey.
yeah,
Thanks for listening.
yeah. One day, baby.
Yeah.
But either way, it doesn't even really matter. Even if we're speaking to the vacuum of space will still accept our voices, and that is good enough for me. Because
That's the point.
otherwise, I would just be playing video games right now.
Yeah.
And it would be great for myself. I would be having great fun. I might be playing it with you, but I wouldn't be able to then say that my life was of any worth. And I don't mean that in any objective sense, trying to put any sort of denigration toward video games, because if you check out our video game discussion, which you should check out, you can obviously see that I am a true blue lover, genuine lover and passionate one of video games. But it's because of that I want to be careful in terms of that love, because it can so easily sink you so quickly. And that can happen with anything. So
It's weird that you can see. I'm not trying to speak outside or trying to talk down to anybody, but you can see. Once you start to pay attention, you can see these patterns of behavior that people have that lead them to just be very unhealthy. Whether it's in their minds, that's where it usually starts, and then you start to see it on the outside. I know this.
it's pathologies.
Yeah,
It's strange, right?
It's a bad positive feedback loop of I don't know, depression into unhealthy eating, into obesity, into more depression and anxiety, into isolation, into it's just this cataclysmic thing that if you constantly pursue expedient, instant gratification type of things, your life is going to turn into a shit show.
right? That's why Dante manifested in hell in steps, because you never get there in one in one
That's
go.
interesting.
You never do. You don't have to follow his specific designation in the poem in any sort of way to be able to begin creating your own personal classifications of the steps toward hell. And the colder and colder, lonelier places deeper into the circles. And every single person has the capacity to create that hell, and it's bountiful.
Right.
You know, and the world gives you plenty of the world is a beautiful toolkit for creating very, very abstract and diverse hells. There's plenty of them.
Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just reading this in that chapter that I was referencing, Pursue What Is Meaningful, that I forget where it started. It started in the Garden of Eden. It started in Genesis and Adam and Eve, but it was about once they ate the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This is what he was saying. What he was saying was part of consciousness and part of being self-aware is understanding that everybody has the capacity because we know in our own selves most of us know what is good and bad, you know, what makes people feel good or what makes people feel bad. We all have that ability to create hell because we can do it to each other, because we understand this person, I can put this person in hell by torturing them. You know what I mean? We all have that capacity to do that. We all have the what does he say, to be Nazi guards?
Yes, that is an exercise in empathy. That's you being able to put yourself in another person's situation, but in a tactical sense, and being like, all right, well, how can I just mess up their life horribly? What would hurt me, in order for me to, and then I will use that on other people. To steal Jordan Peterson's words, it's what he called demonically possessed aesthetics, where it's like a beautiful piece of evil, where you just where you really have to think about it, right? It's like, because there's one thing to be reactionarily evil, where you're like, man, you know, screw that guy, and then like do something bad, but then to be the kind of person to stop and really think about it, take out a notebook and like make a diagram and like
bullet points.
Yeah. Though that's demonically possessed aesthetic, because you want to then make it beautiful. Oh, you want that pain to sear generations, maybe, if it can, right? That's one of the things that he mentions, as you said, that everybody has that inside of them. Everybody has the potential to tap into that, and the best thing we can do is to be aware of it. Take the monster out of its cage, look at it, and be like, okay, we are one, right? It's the Jungian integration of the shadow. You're never supposed to reject the shadow. You're supposed to integrate it into yourself, so then you can be a whole being. Because what kind of being are you without a shadow, right?
Yeah, a shadow of a being.
Yeah, you would be. Oh, so apt. Right, and because of that, you cannot reject your more negative aspects, but you can begin to cultivate them in a way that begins to yield fair harvest to you. Because I can imagine that, and although I know that it's out of vogue, but I like the concept of the id, that there's just an aspect of yourself that's just like a mule, just wanting to go forward all the time, just gratification. And a mule is a very useful tool. If you have a field that you know that can be plowed, if you use the id properly, it can run us through very easily in order for us to be able to set down our seed. So I think that is what it means to be able to integrate every part of yourself. Because to think that there is an aspect of yourself that is so horrible is to demonize your own self. And when you demonize yourself, you put yourself in the same shoes that a potential serial killer does. Because majority of the time, that's what happens, is that they take their pathologies to such a repressed extreme that almost every law in the universe, they don't get destroyed. They just get manifested in a different way. You never get to destroy the negative feelings. They will just outlet themselves in a way that you will turn off, and the negative feelings will take over. And that's what you want to avoid. You want to always be the guy doing the outletting of the steam of yourself all of the time. Don't delude yourself into thinking you don't have any steam inside you, because you do. You're an angry, half insane chimp. You really, really are. And once you give yourself that little bit of credit, that little bit of due, and that little bit of forgiveness in the sense of what you are.
Honest. Yeah,
Right,
being
exactly.
honest with
Now,
yourself.
now you can be your own handler. You can drive the little chimp forward and be like, look at what he can do. It's gonna be great, right? And that's what Jordan Peterson, at least to my mind, has really gleaned on very well.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine the amount of decades of of thinking and having to speak to people,
Yes.
speaking to his postgraduates, speaking to his undergrads, and like it's the continuous sharpening of the knife. That really is what
Sharpening, yeah.
it's just a sharpening of the knife. And he's always mentioning that people tell him that when he says things like he could have done them better, but what he likes to joke is that doesn't mean that they'll do it, right? You have to allow yourself the humility to sound like an idiot
Yeah.
first before anybody can ever consider you wise later. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah. It's a super big deal. And it takes a lot of humility to get to that point too.
Right.
That's something that I've noticed particularly when you go back and watch Jordan, his older lectures and shit. He's just so much more confident now. The way that he speaks, how he holds himself.
Right? Like you, he's not as fidgety. He's not.
Yeah.
He can maintain and articulate the sentences because he said them before.
Because he's been doing it for years.
Right, exactly. That's one thing that I've come to notice about myself is that the more I speak and the more especially now doing these podcasts, being able to play back my words and really be able to catch the intonations of myself, it allows me to refine my persona. Again, not rejecting my persona, but trying to refine it in a way that could potentially be useful to the whole crew, everybody that's listening right now and anywhere at any given time.
Oh, that's the whole idea.
Right, exactly, because we're talking into a digital machine that could potentially exist for thousands of years. We don't know the longevity of YouTube or any other one of the mechanisms that we're using to put these words out into the ether. We could be speaking much like Nietzsche does to me when I open Zarathustra from 150 years ago, right? Long dead, I'm dust, but here I am, right? And because we get to live in a first world, we get to experience what will be the problems of everyone, I think is one of the biggest things. Because if we're optimistic, as I sometimes very, very lightly like to give myself the ability to be, everyone will live in a first world modicum at some point or another, or very close to at least a second world. We're striving toward that every single day in some way, just by not being dicks. We're striving toward that. And because of that, people will have to deal with depressions and apathies and the concepts of, oh man, like I love video games, but what else am I gonna do with my time? How can I reframe this odd love in a means that actually manages to be able to give me an id that will sow my harvest, right? How can I reframe myself? That's one thing that I'm always battling with all of the time, thinking about how I can restructure my inner self, because every day is a struggle for me too. I woke up today and I was thinking of the things that I had to do and the myriad of ways that I could totally skip the gym. I was like, like I have so many things to do, so many ways to be productive today. I'm sure that even if I didn't go to the gym today, I would still feel great at the end of the day because of the things we're about to get done. But I did not allow myself. That was such a poor. I should have known better. I should have had a better excuse, I think. I should have tried a little harder in my excuses, and maybe tomorrow I'll beat myself. But today I couldn't. I was like, no, like you still have time. You know it. I know it. That's one thing I told Kevin one time before when we were talking about psychedelics, is that I have this weird conceptualization of the judge when I do psychedelics, that I always, on a day that I might do that kind of thing, I try to get a lot done that day. I try to be as hyper productive as I possibly can, because I do not want the judge to appear inside of my head.
This is some good advice, because I'm planning on tripping either next weekend or the following.
Yeah, I
That's
think
a good idea.
I think so. Because although the judge might come out, he might rule in your favor, right? And that's the thing, is that it's not that the judge won't come out, it's that you just want to be able to lean the evidence toward your favor.
Increase the chances.
Right,
that you're
exactly.
gonna
It's
get
like,
a passing
okay.
grade. Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
like
I
that.
see. Yeah, we've reviewed the evidence, and it seems like today is a good day for it, right? Yeah, right. You don't. Once again, as Jordan Peterson says, you don't want to make every aspect of yourself a dictator that's leading the march, goose stepping, toward whatever odd abstraction of a future that you're trying to make. You're, just coaxing. You're just patting yourself on the back a little bit, wondering, it's like, hey, we did great yesterday. You remember that feeling yesterday?
You got to make deals with yourself, right? Like you got to be.
You literally have to deal with the devil, because as we said, we're all half devils.
Yes, half devil, half Christ.
Yeah.
Half Cain, half Abel. Yeah, we man, that's so important. That's really what we're getting at too, is trying to find a balance, right? Trying to be like, okay, I can play some video games, but before I play video games, I'm gonna go to the gym, and then after I get home from the gym, I should probably read a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just trying to find a balance, maintaining 1 foot in chaos and 1 foot in order.
Correct. Right. You don't want to make yourself only be one thing, because one will lead to obsession, and then the other one will lead you to apathy. Right? You want to. If I became overtly like orderly and be like, I have to go to the gym every single day, like I have to, like do this because I have to.
Yeah.
It becomes a compulsion as opposed to a means for me to be able to, as I said before earlier, bulwark myself for potential chaos later. I'm putting on horse visors and hoping that just by not paying attention to anything else except going to the gym or working out, or reading, or doing whatever, that I can dampen reality, I suppose. That's never the thing I want to do with the things that I am actively doing. When I'm at the gym, I'm doing it because I know that it hurts, and I'm there and I'm present. When I'm doing this podcast, I'm actively listening, and I'm actively speaking, and I'm here. I am genuinely here at this very moment. And in this space-time, this little capsule of space-time that is this podcast, I am seriously here, for both you as my friend and the listener as my proto-friend, because anybody that's willing to listen this long, it means that we're touching upon something that speaks to them too. It's been, washing about their mind as well. They've also been playing Monster Hunter. They've also been playing any sort of game for a very long time, that it really gives them the satisfaction that they want at the moment, but it always leaves a hole at the end, unfortunately. Not to generalize, because there are people that can do it, but I'm unfortunately not that kind of person. I need to diversify my portfolio in terms of the means that I choose to spend my time. And I even do that with what people would consider to be productive aspects, like reading. Like, I can read for a really long time, and then eventually I get bored of reading. I'm like, I've been reading for a long time, and I was like, let me do something else with that little aspect of time that I'm doing, and then eventually, it like the dentist system. You
system.
You completely remove yourself emotionally entirely, and then eventually you just want to come back. And that's the sick relationship you can have with success.
Wow. Well, way to tie that all in together at the end with
course.
the dentist system.
Hey, I mean, unfortunately, although but that's the thing, Dennis, in that situation, if Jordan Peterson wanted to talk to Dennis, he would be able to see the fact that Dennis has a lot of promise. He's a man that's very, very smart, and that's why I feel that he's such a fan favorite in terms of, like, It's Always Sunny and things like that, because everybody can kind of see themselves in Dennis a little bit.
It's interesting that you should say that. I think what
Rob McElhenney? Oh, no, that's Mac. Glenn Howerton.
Glenn Howerton.
Yes.
I think what he said specifically about Dennis, but more generally about It's Always Sunny, was it's what it would look like when people that have shot for the American dream and failed. That's what the characters are supposed to represent.
Right.
Which fits right into what you were saying.
And I'm a gigantic fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, because it is like the most beautiful and crystalline representation of the devolution toward hell. That is because they're normal guys.
Yeah.
Season 1, they're entirely normal people, and then slowly but surely, through their pathologies, they descend into their own person of hell. That literally no one can touch them without being just screwed over. You can't walk into Patty's pub without
Your life
being
ruined.
irreparably ruined forever.
Yeah.
Right, and as we always mention, as nodes in the network, that runs perfectly in line with it. Every single one of them is just adding more vitriol and negativity toward the network, and because the gang is always together, what else can they do but palpitate that across Philadelphia?
This is so good. I've never thought about that like that
Yeah.
before. It's fascinating. Oh,
I mean,
I always felt it, but you just articulated
right.
it. very
And
well.
that episode where they go get analyzed, the gang goes and gets analyzed. That imagine if Jordan Peterson was the one that was analyzing them, you know.
Could they
I
do
think
a
it would end the
recut?
exact same way. I think it would end the exact same way with D just breaking. It was like, you bitch.
Oh my god.
Right? But it just goes to show how unbelievably universal this feeling is, that even in any piece of media, even the most nihilistic to the common observer, can touch upon the ills of the zeitgeist almost. That everybody is feeling the fact that we kind of don't know what to do with ourselves anymore, because when it comes to eating, oh man, we got the game locked down. We can't go hungry anymore. Not to speak for every human, but for us right here, it's impossible for us to go hungry.
It's very apparent when
Yeah.
you look outside or walk around a Walmart or
It's very, very hard to go hungry, and because of that, that automatically, that necessity gone. Where to live? That's a bit more anxiety riding, you know, because we have to go to work, we have to maintain the job, to maintain the mortgage, to maintain ourselves, and that's a strong, consistent anxiety that hasn't been as quelched in our society as food has, right?
but still very much improved.
Oh, much
Like
so,
you're
right?
right.
Exactly. It's like it takes 90 days for the sheriff. I mean, like it takes what, 6
it-
months for this almost for the sheriff
To
to
kick
kick
you out of
you
your-
out. Exactly. It's like you get your affairs in order. You know, it's like it isn't like from one day to the next they're gonna just kick you out. It's like it's a long process
Yeah.
to do so. And in 6 months, imagine you're doing horribly, and I can only imagine potentially somebody out there might be right now doing horribly to the point that you just got evicted, right? Or just got the notice of eviction. You got 90 days. 90 days, man. 90 days is 3 months, and that is a very, very long time if the time is properly used, right? And that time you can easily get yourself clean of marijuana to get yourself a job. In that amount of time, you can easily begin to save money from not spending money on drugs, to eventually come to a point that even if you get evicted from this one place that you're at right now, you'll have enough money to pay for a down payment on the next place that you're at. There are still so many avenues of opportunity, even at what could be considered in our society the lowest point, right? Because getting
super
evicted,
lucky that
getting
that
evicted
is-
is like like it's still a stigmatizing thing. Like
Right.
like nobody wants to have that kind of
Be homeless. But,
yeah.
But you're saying that it's we not everybody, but we have a much bigger amount of opportunity.
Correct.
And-
Yes.
and-
And I know this is a buzzword that people like to misuse, but the social safety net set up for us is very, very apt to handle if you are able to put in a little work alongside it. And thank goodness, right? That's something that Jordan Peterson is always mentioning, that although we should criticize the patriarchy, we also have to give it its due, in the sense that it's both things. It's the tyrannical king, but it's also the loving father at the same time. That no father worth his salt is all love to their children. They're hard at the same time.
you have to
They're hard.
discipline.
You have to discipline, because or else you
order
just make
to-
you just make softies all over the place, and they're useful to no one, right? Because
order
the
to make-
world is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
need
more
diamonds.
diamonds,
You
more
need diamonds.
diamonds.
Yeah.
That I feel like that story just perfectly kind of encapsulates, Jordan Peterson's philosophy.
Right.
That
I'm amazed that he hasn't brought it up more.
I've never heard him mention it.
Yeah.
I mean, he mentions Nietzsche
Gotcha,
all the
Jordan.
time. Gotcha. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Please come on one day.
Yeah, one day come.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
Wouldn't that be something? But that's the thing, is that it's the striving, right? It's like we're speaking to air right now, but who knows what these kind of situations, just the desire to want to be able to put our better foot forward can lead, right?
And that's all it takes.
Yeah, that's the example that he did, right? It's like, I'm willing to lose my job, like I'm willing to completely go against, because he's a liberal. He very very actively says that he's a left-leaning guy, but he's just not a radical. Like he wants reformation. He doesn't want destruction.
Yeah.
And I feel that entirely, because as I said, I love this country. I come from Honduras, which is a very dysfunctional place that unfortunately, for one reason or another, both historical and contemporary and present, there's just a lot of mixing that this allows us to be as organized as we possibly can. And but here there's a paradigm that we're a little closer to what it should be, right? Even with all our ills, that it's worth preserving and at the same time worth refining. I think that's the key word for myself. I want to refine the society that I live in, not chuck it aside, right? Because it's a diamond. It really is. And there might be some cracks here and there. There might be there might be some fogging coming up on one end, but you don't throw away a beautiful diamond just because there's work to be done on it. That the hours put into a diamond are also the thing that make the diamond beautiful, right? Because as we said, the one on the ground is just like, if we pick up a whole new paradigm of societal system, we'd have to pick it up off the ground, and that diamond's going to be way cloudier and way shittier than the one we just stopped working with. We're going to have to go back and restructure and redo things that were already handled a couple hundred years ago, right?
And there's plenty of examples of this in history too. Yeah.
There's this. It seems to be a very unnecessary and reactionary response to a system that does have legitimate issues that should be addressed.
Well, you know what? I think Jordan Peterson does reference this very often. Maybe not specifically, but what we're talking about, but he uses the term, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater,
Right,
all of the fucking time.
Exactly.
And that that is mostly what he's talking about when he says that too. But yeah. Well, that's probably a good place to wrap it up.
Do you think so?
My brain's just tired.
That's okay, man. It's understandable. There's just so much to be said.
Yeah.
The library of things and topics that man has touched is robust, and we could literally be here 6 hours and maybe touch on 10% of it.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of
that,
it, if
yeah.
that, right?
So yeah, everybody, 12 Rules for Life, Maps of Meaning. I haven't read the book. The YouTube lectures are apparently pretty good.
Oh, the actual Maps of Meaning book?
Yeah.
No, I haven't read it either. I watched the lectures. Yeah, I mean, I think there's about 25 of them, and each one of them is between 2 hours and an hour long. So that's like a whole book anyways, right?
Yeah.
The book's like 600 pages, so...
Wow.
Yeah, it's long.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, I think so. I think that anybody who bothered to click on this, I hope that it was satisfactory. I hope that we were able to showcase the reasons why we sing the praises that we do for Jordan Peterson, and to also be able to showcase a bit more of a spectrum in terms of the people that he attracts, right? Because you're a person born where? You were born in California? You were born in Minnesota?
Yeah, no, Minnesota.
Right, you were born in Minnesota. Sorry.
Yeah, Midwest.
Midwest, right? Yeah, and I was born in Honduras, right? Two humans that were born in separate parts of the reality, and we came to each other, and here we are now, brought together by the fostering of ethics that this guy is trying to teach. It really showcases that it's a human effort.
Yeah.
It can touch a lot of people, and because all it's asking you is to talk to yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to be like Jordan Peterson. You don't have to be like me. You don't have to be like you. You can only be your best self. And I think that it's something that everybody needs to keep in mind as they move along life, to cut themselves a little slack, but at the same time understand that your charcoal's with diamonds inside of them waiting to be extracted.
Some real pretty words you just said there.
Yeah, check out Thus Spoke Zarathustra if you can. It's a dense book, but man, oh man.
Yeah, Crime and Punishment, The Idiot.
Yeah.
I haven't read it yet, but the brothers Karamazov.
Yeah.
I hear is another really good one.
I'm about to start reading Notes from Underground. I hear that's a very dark one. That one's before Crime and Punishment, so that's when he was still uber dark.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Gulag Archipelago.
If
Solzhenitsyn.
ever I get to that book.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like one that you should read, but you don't wanna.
Yeah, all right.
You really.
I like look at it and I'm like, oh.
It's like what was the dude Frankel, Man's Search for Meaning. Wonderful book. We didn't touch on it at all, but it kind of falls in the vein of what this talk was about. But check that out. Check out Jordan Peterson's lectures on YouTube. All of them, probably. They're great.
Yeah, right. Hey, and if you find any points of contention, take that as an excuse to then take out your phone and begin your own podcast and responses to it, right? Because every single instance is a good moment for proactivity. Nothing can stop you except yourself. I think that's the big lesson. And that's the killer thought that we're going to be leaving you with tonight. So have a nice day and keep being diamonds.